Welcome to the Reclaim podcast. In this episode, we are joined by veteran Air France commercial pilot Jean-Jacques Trochon and lifestyle medicine practitioner Dr Darcelle Schouw to lead an insightful discussion about the health benefits of prolonged fasting. Since surviving cancer, Jean-Jacques, or JJ as he is more commonly known, engaged leading specialists around the world to pioneer a revolution in cancer treatment. Prolonged fasting being the key component. Dr. Schouw, herself a cancer survivor, has also incorporated a fasting protocol into her recovery.
As a lead-in to the conversation, if you could just start me with how and when you got into fasting as a lifestyle choice.
Basically, I had my first primary tumor. I had kidney cancer in 2003 and only became metastatic 9 years later in 2012. And that's when I started all the process of contacting all these scientists around the world. And one of them was Walter Longo. And Walter Longo is based in USC, University of Southern California in Los Angeles. So I told him what was happening to me as I was, I had 10 nodules in my right side. We had a talk for 25 minutes and he said, this is what you got to do and this is what you can expect from fasting and how it's going to go. And, if you've got 12 days, well, try to do 5, 6, 7 days. If you feel good, continue. And that's what I did. And I did my very first fast was 12 days in a row. I was on the 13th day. I went to my appointment with one of the top surgeons in France. And he couldn't believe how in shape I was. I looked, at least, I had so much energy coming out of me. Of course, I was in very high ketosis. And we know that ketosis makes you really fast thinking. And so that's it. That's how it started.
So you went straight into it for 12 days.
I didn't have a choice.
Okay. No easing into it. Had you tried fasting prior to that suggestion, or have you no intermittent fasting?
No, never. I started researching. The biology subject was my subject when I was in high school in America, but it was long gone, And so when I was operated in 2003. I right away I realized that I had to do something for myself because I wasn't going to get out of it. Otherwise, I knew my doctor wasn't going to do anything for me. That was just the way it was going to go. That's when the early stage of what you call anti-angiogenesis, which is the only way a tumor grows. Every cell, whether the good cell or the bad cells, need to feed. So angiogenesis, angio is a Greek term, it's an old Greek term, and genesis, the becoming or the hijacking of the blood vessels. So angio means blood vessels, basically, right. Capillary, small ones. And it's a system that we have in us that functions really well when we in good shape. So sometimes the body needs blood vessels. If you fall and you hurt yourself, you start bleeding, you got little blood vessels coming under and bringing the food or the nutrients basically to heal from underneath. And then the body says, well, it's done. So we have too many, so bring them down. So it works really well. But when you have a very high chronic inflammation, that angiogenesis system goes out of control, and it can be positive or negative. And you've got a list of illnesses that goes with the positive angiogenesis out of control and the negative angiogenesis out of control. Negative means they take it away. They take some blood vessels away from the system. Obviously, cancer is a positive angiogenesis that keeps on feeding the nodules. And so you've got to stop that. And my oncologist, to start with, who became a very good friend, close friend, and a partner in all of this at doing those, organizing those conferences, international conferences, Bernard was the number one scientist that was named to investigate the first medication, the anti-angiogenic medication. Avastin, Sutent, they're very well known because Avastin came on the market in 2003, in 2003. And so there's a visibility there long enough to have been able to do clinical trials, basically, to be able to approve it on certain types of cancers.
Sure.
So this is how we came about. And then so that was the very early stage of those data that was coming out in 2003. And when I became metastatic, I had already gone into it, and the fasting was going to be the next stage. But I was fine, sort of, so to speak. You never realize. And when it came out, and I had 10 nodules on the right side, in the right lung. And after this 12-day or 13-day fast, 5 out of 10 were calcified. Boom. And we noticed that. My radiotherapist, he's a very good friend. He's like, he's never seen that before. And then in the afternoon at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I had this appointment with my surgeon who was going to operate me 3 days later. And he said, well, is there anything you do that we don't know about? Because like, what happened there, sort of thing. That's how the whole thing started.
And I'm curious, how did you get through that first 12 days? Because 12 days it's quite a big step to walk straight into a 12-day fast.
Yeah, for people who have never done it, or if you don't have the mental approach to it, means knowing what is going to happen during the fast. How does it work? Where do you get your energy from? Is it like a linear thing that you're going to go through, or is it going to do yo-yo? Well, if you know in advance, this is what I do for people. I spend time explaining, don't worry, this is what's going to happen. If you go over 5 days, you need to go and see your doctor for peace of mind, to monitor your blood pressure. It's going to be low. It's normal. So it was a piece of cake. And I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Because I knew what to expect. And it was really funny because I was experiencing what Walter Longo had told me. Yeah, so I got through the 12 days, and it was like frustrating to have to eat again because I was feeling so good.
Yeah. So Darcy, you got into these prolonged fasts through JJ, I presume?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and you've done it twice now?
I've done it twice, and I've decided to do it every month now.
Yeah.
So the first time that I did it, I remember by day 2, I was ready to quit. And then I contacted JJ and I said, is it okay if I just stop at 3 days? And JJ said, no, you do 5 days.
Yeah.
And it was literally after day 3, day 4, day 5 that I felt at my best. But day 1 and day 2 was where I was going to cop out. But I also knew, having been with my oncologist, that the type of cancer that I have, the type of breast cancer, it's aggressive and it can come at any time. So at the moment, there's no evidence of the disease, but they're still wanting to continue and put me on treatment. But the treatment has adverse side effects. So the one treatment would be, there's a 10% chance of this treatment working, but the side effect would be 4 to 5 months of grade 3 diarrhea. And that didn't make sense for me. So doing the fasting and then the other alternatives that JJ has also suggested in terms of the fucoidan, the CMOS, looking at the sulforaphane and upping in terms of what I take in to support me during the fast. After the first round of fast, I then said, okay, I'm going to do another round of fast. And that's when you decided to also join in on the fast. And I must say, the results, when I said after the first fast, the swelling had gone down, but immediately when I broke the fast, the swelling was there again. And JJ, you mentioned to me that do it again and again, and you'll see the difference, which I did. So post second fast, the neuropathy, peripheral neuropathy, is completely gone. And that is, for me, that's a miracle.
And both your fasting cycles were 5 days.
5 days. Yes.
5 days, yeah. So the second one that you did, and my first, that was 5 days as well. And like you, the first, I'd say the first 24 hours was okay. It wasn't too bad. The second day was horrendous. You know, it just wasn't. It felt. I wouldn't say I was famished, but it was like my body was crying out to me, saying, "Look, you haven't fed me for a while. You know, are you feeling okay?" And in my mind as well, even though you gave me a heads up as to your experiences the first time around. So like you, JJ, like I knew what to expect the first time around, and it played out exactly like that. Because you said the second day was pretty bad, and it certainly was for me. And I was going to throw in the towel. But by the Wednesday, the third day, I felt amazing. I absolutely no appetite. I felt stronger. In terms of how I felt physically, it felt like I'd been to the gym. Like I felt physically strong, you know what I mean? And sharper. Certainly my cognitive function was right up there. I was mentally alert, and that was for the remainder of the fast. So the days 3, 4, and 5, I felt really, really, really good, actually. That surprised me. I know, Darcelle, you said those 3 days, the last 3 days, you felt great. I think I really underestimated how good it feels. The one thing I did have, though, was my glucose levels dropped. So I had some dizziness, and so I monitored my blood pressure. It was on the low side, but it was okay. It was fine. It wasn't too bad. I didn't train. I didn't do any gym work, really. I did steady state stuff, so long walks and that kind of stuff, just to keep the circulation going. Now, one thing I've noted, and I hadn't disclosed to you, Darcelle, was that so I have cauda equina syndrome. So the cauda equina nerve cluster is compromised because of 2 herniated discs. Now, I intermittent nerve pain with that, and constant, well, it's not paralysis, but constant numbness in my legs, and poor circulation, obviously, poor circulation because the neural signal is quite weak. But the inflammation of the nerves settled after day 3.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I had these intermittent sort of electric shocks. I didn't have any of that. They've come back this week, but to a lesser degree.
It would have been good, of course, if you had spoken to me before you'd done your fast. You've got to understand why it is happening the first 2, 3, 4 days. It's not exactly a day. You know, we have a metabolism that is different from one another, of course. And there is a transition. You've got glucose in your body that is available right away, and it lasts about 24 to 30 hours. And after that, the body's got to keep going. But there's no more because you stop eating. So the body's going to try to look for proteins to transfer, but I mean, instantly realizes is not a very good plan, because without protein, the body dies after a while. If you reach about 50% of your total protein, that's it. So the body says, I'll leave it. I'll go and fetch. The only thing that is left is the fat. And so the fat that is on you is going to be, to make it simple, going through the main factory of the body, which is the liver, and transform the fat into ketone bodies. And so the ketone bodies are going to be the new main energy source. And ketone bodies are how they explain it is that is like the electric cars today, a clean fuel compared to the glucose, which is messy and leaves a lot of pathogens, basically. And so there is this transition, and that transition happens after about 24 to 30 hours. It's why we don't feel so good at day 2, day 3, or day 4. Depending on people, it moves from those 3 days. It is the reason. And once the body is okay and understood what's happening after 3, 4 days, it now feeds at, say, 97% on the ketone bodies and 3% on the glucose protein converting. And when you're steady, that's it. Now you go. And the body afterwards, all it's got to do is manage the glucose level, obviously, the blood pressure, and it's why it does yo-yo. So during the day, sometimes for 3 hours, you feel like absolutely down. It's like, oh.
Yes.
And then before you know it, you're speaking to someone and you were feeling like this for 3 hours. And then suddenly you realize, but I'm feeling bionic now. What's happening? And this is going on and on. For my case, I remember my wife pushing me up because I was walking up the hills in a park next door. And I was like feeling so down. And it was like day 3, day 4. By day 6, I was like, wow, where is that energy coming from? By day 9, I was running around the lake like a mad chicken. And wow, I was running 2, 3 times around the lake, and then people say, how does he do it? And I felt fantastic. So that's what's really happening. But behind the scenes, that's what people must understand. When you clear the fat that is on you, there's a lot of toxins in the fat, years and years of toxins. And it's why when you do a fast, it's taking some of it out. It's why you feel regenerated. But there is more. So it's going to be replaced. The ones that are underneath are going to come on, first in line. And so it's why you feel things coming back again. And if you do it again and again and again, then at some point there's not enough concentration of pathogens in your body, in your tissues, and the body resets itself basically from all these different fasts. And why 5 days, not 4? Because Walter Longo in the lab, he's the #1 biologist basically worldwide, with his team and a whole bunch of oncologists who accepted around the world to work with this program. They showed that during 5 days, the main growth factors for cancer in particular, but for all sorts of chronic illnesses, are going steep down. And after 5, 6 days, it sort of curves and slows down the drop. And it keeps dropping as you fast. I went up to 26 days. I did a 26-day fast. I did a 21-day fast. I did plenty of 12, 14-day fast sessions. And just to try.
You are the master.
And see what's going on, and do blood tests and see what's going on. So we came to a point where, I'm also very active with Dr. Laurence Zidvogel, who's the #1 scientist worldwide. She's an oncologist, but she's a researcher. And she's the leading researcher in the world in what you call tumor immunology. Immunomicrobiome-oncology, because we have data now that is coming out that no one knows about. No one. No doctor. It's ongoing research. And we're finding out stuff that is absolutely amazing. And when you fast, the power that it has of resetting the microbiome, the intestinal microbiome we're talking about, because we have lots of different microbiomes. In fact, every organ has got its own microbiome. But the main one is in the intestinal tract. If you sort it out, then suddenly we see that people have all sorts of different chronic illnesses today that are almost 100% coming from our environment. And fasting is a wonderful way to sort everything out at once. It touches so many functions, resets so many functions. But first, the microbiome of the tract, intestinal tract. And when that is sorted, the rest is starting to function. The other microbiomes are now fed the good stuff. And so people with sometimes chronic illnesses don't even take pills or medication or anything, which don't work, by the way. Most of them don't work because they were not made for this. They're just there to stabilize, more or less. There are some illnesses that are, doctors will tell you, we can't treat it. You have to take medication for life. But that is not true.
Yeah.
We have type 2 diabetes today. We've got lots of researchers with doctors that are treating type 2 diabetes with calorie restriction, with ketogenesis, and it's published. So that's one of them. But that's why it's so powerful, and it has a direct link with the microbiome, which is today we have results, especially in cancer, that we've never had before. And that's the previous 6 months.
Thanks, JJ. Just on the changes in the microbiome, and even with myself with the cancer, having chronic IBS, I can actually eat anything right now that I never could eat before. The amount of swelling that has just gone down. My blood pressure prior to chemo and all of the treatment that I had was relatively low. But throughout the treatment phase, I've been sitting at a hypertension level of blood pressure, and the beauty of it now is that my sugar levels are controlled, my blood pressure is back. It was almost reset to what it used to be. The other thing was, because I had lymph nodes removed on both sides of my arms, I didn't produce a body odor. So everything was almost like dead. So coming out of my second fast, I started having a body odor that I never had. So my body, the body functions are resetting back to the way it used to be. I have sensation on my right-hand side that I never had before. It's completely returned. The left side, which was completely numb, dead, I'm starting to feel sensation there as well. So that for me is motivating to wanting to carry on. And then having spoken to my oncologist, because he can't believe that I'm doing so well, because we initially stopped one of the treatments that was targeted treatment, the Herceptin, that was targeted treatment for HER2 triple positive. We stopped it because of the side effects. And he said I wasn't going to be able to recover from those side effects. It was just going to get worse. And then I let him know yesterday, I have zero. There's nothing. So it's so powerful.
I am very lucky to have been not only accepted, but requested among the leading world research team in immunomicrobiome oncology, from request of the European Director of Research, which is amazing. So there are a number of things I can't really talk about, because I signed a document of non-disclosure, basically, because otherwise, from desperation, people would jump at just about anything, which is maybe would be counterproductive, because it's an ongoing research. But some of the things that are coming out are absolutely fantastic. We know that microbiome is going to be the key. If you talk about, that's what you said earlier on, which is really important, 10% with the treatment, 10% chance of working. Well, in about 8-9 years ago, immunotherapy was a 3% success on 3 or 4 types of cancers only. Today, we're up to 30%, which is enormous, but it's still, it only concerns 5, 6, 7 different types of cancers. When you consider there's possibly 150, then you realize there's a lot of work to be done. And so if suddenly by finding out the right type of bacteria that is going to be the link with other bacteria and boost your immune system to a point where it's going to help you as a person, your body, your metabolism, but then it's going to help the treatment to function on different types of cancers. That's fantastic. And this is what I'm witnessing. And this is what I help them collect all the data, basically, of because patients have to be on board, and people have to be on board. So there's a program, European program, which is a world program, really. I'm just so lucky to be part of it. And so to be able to help thousands of people soon, possibly millions.
Absolutely. Before Dar spoke to me, I I actually hadn't heard of this prolonged fast. I've done intermittent fasting. That was just from a training perspective and a lifestyle kind of perspective. So, and also my portal equina syndrome, it affects my digestive system as well. So it's very slow, which is weird because my metabolism is fine. Thyroid function is fine, but then just the digestive system is slow. So I've had to change the way I eat. I tried the 16 and 8 window. That didn't really do anything. Because it was just skipping breakfast. It didn't give me enough time to feel any. Then I went to 18 and 6, which was better. And the one that I found that really worked for me was 20 and 4. But then I found that tricky to sustain because I had to figure out where in that 4-hour eating window do I train? Because when I train in the gym, it's quite intense. Like it's quite heavy type of training. So I thought, okay, either I stay on the 20 and 4 and readjust my training style, or I try another window, which I did. I tried, was it 5 and 2? But on the 2 days of fasting, I found that limiting my intake to 500-600 calories was more of a teaser. Like I actually felt more hungry.
Yeah.
Wanting, like, okay, I've done my 500-600 calories, but now I'm just not satiated. So the 5 and 2 for me was, the principle was great, but I couldn't sustain that. And with the 5-day fast, I actually could have gone a couple of days longer. So that Friday, what I found tough was the last, I would say, 4 to 6 hours, because I knew the fast was coming to an end, and mentally, yes, I just wanted to say, okay, let's speed this up now. So when the time arrived to break my fast, I actually didn't want to eat, and it was a chore eating, and it took me a few days to actually start eating like I normally did. And then with that, once I started eating, my usual sort of patterns, I could sense that sluggishness sort of come back, and that element of brain fog come back, and it was quite interesting to monitor actually.
Sean, when you talk about eating, I would be curious to see what's in front of you, especially when you start after a fast. Starting to eat, first of all, you've got to start the first day after a 5-day fast or more, 5 days or more. It's got to be liquids. You don't want to introduce hard food, only liquid. And then you don't want to have lots of carbs. It's really important. Because it's like an extra day of fasting, but it is not. It is just helping the body to transition. Remember, it's a synergy thing. Most results that we witness around the planet from different scientists who have cohorts of patients basically doing the same. It's really showing that today people are on a diet that they don't realize even if they try to do the right thing, they are not balanced in terms of fatty acids. It starts there. If your house you got a front door, every house got a front door. This is the door to the gate to good health, and the good health is inside the house. If you want to be in good health, you've got to have the right balance with fatty acids. Then you do the rest. It was really funny that I spoke to a friend of mine in the US yesterday, and he's doing weights and lots of exercise, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. And then he tested himself on the special test, the balance test, and he's at 26-1. So 1 omega-3 for 26 omega-6, which is dangerous. And he went along to a meeting with his sports training coach, who's also into nutrition. He also did the test. He's 40-1. It's like,
wow,
he's going to end up having a stroke or a cardiovascular real problem.
Yeah.
And they think they're doing the right thing. So it starts there. And the fasting actually resets this thing as well. fasting is like, I don't call it magic. It's scientific, and we know why. But what you put in your mouth after the fast or between fast is super important. You've got to have a strategy which is anti-angiogenic. And so did I send you, Darcelle, the talk from William Lee, Dr. William Lee?
Yes, you did.
It's 24 minutes. It talks about the anti-angiogenic approach, and it's so clear. It's fantastic. And also low carb, because why do we have to do low carb today? Is because we have so much of these carbs everywhere in our food, and we have so much omega-6, every single pre-prepared foods, fast foods, they're full of them. So it's why people are getting sicker and sicker today, and younger. We've got all these people in Polynesia. I was also brought up in Polynesia, French Polynesia, all these islands around Tahiti. They're reaching 80% of people pre or diabetic with being overweight or obese. 80%. This is never seen before. They're going straight into the wall. So for the first time, if you consider France, this is all France, they have voted fasting into the medical program in terms of prevention. It's the first time ever. And so everybody's got to go along, because if they don't do anything, they're all dead.
Right.
It's pretty much what I think.
JJ, just on that, I spoke to a pediatrician recently, last week, where she mentioned that kids as young as 9 years old are diabetic. They have hypertension. They are on CPAP machines. So they are on chronic meds at age 9 already.
Yep.
And I mean, it's just a downward trajectory for them, because the parents eat the same way, and it's all in what everybody's consuming. So there's a lot of education that needs to go around in terms of what we.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to come from government.
And
yeah.
There's some indication with ADHD kids as well. There's some research indicating that the diet has a lot to do in terms of influencing that condition. And the way it is now is like, you take to a kid to a doctor or a physician or specialist, diagnosis is ADHD, and give the kids a pill forever.
Yeah.
And they're on medication for.
On that, with the kids and giving them the pill, and JJ, you're speaking about the microbiome. So I have an autistic daughter, and she was on chronic meds since she was little. And back then, I changed her diet, and her gut is so linked to her cognitive. Nobody would actually say that she is autistic, because I keep her meals clean. There's a specific way I feed her, and she knows. And any time she eats something out of that basket, what I give her, it affects her cognitively, and she can go right down to being autistic, salivating. She's got salivating acid. So I saw firsthand from her, just by changing her diet, how it impacted her, in a good way. So she's actually high functioning.
Actually, you directed me to a couple of documentaries which I've watched, which I've actually watched, because Darcelle's recommended quite a few movies and stuff that I never get to watch. But I did actually make a point to watch these, and they're very interesting in terms of how what we eat influences our behavior, our health, and cognitive function, all these things. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I'm going to send you a couple which were made by good friends I work with. They're documentaries, French documentaries. They have access to every single major scientist around the planet. And they've done one on fasting and one on microbiome that are recent. It's fantastic, and it's in English. So
yeah, please do. That'd be great. So with your spreading the word, so you've penned a book, you've authored a book, or Flying Against the Odds.
Flying Against the Odds, yeah.
Yes, and within that, you obviously outline the benefits. Do you also have within that book a guideline as to a dietary guideline? Or I've ordered mine hasn't arrived yet, but is that what the book's about?
It's about my story, but in the story, I tell people, look, you've got to do something for yourselves, and this is what could be done. I'm staying basic in the book because I want people to understand. I was very, very, very sick, and to given a few months to live, basically, at some point between 2012 and 2014. And the last thing you want when you're sick and every day you struggle and you can't get out of bed, and this is something complicated. So we decided with my wife to write this book as the easiest way possible for people to understand. And then I've got a website, Jean-Jacques which has also explanations, and I've got a checklist. It comes from the airplane, my airplane world, a checklist on different things that I've done, which is actually being taught by some of the scientists around the world. And I talk about the early stage of the microbiome as well, because obviously in 2017 that was the early stage of really getting into it. And in fact, I was called on by Dr. Laurence Zitvogel with her team. She's as I said again, she's the leading scientist in the world on this. And the first time she phoned me up, that's the first time, she said, JJ or Mr. Trochon at the time, we need to see you now, because it is not tolerable that we don't know why you're still alive today. So she saw my file and she's like, and Bernard Escudier, who's the top guy in Gustav Roussy, which is the leading cancer center in Europe, comprehensive cancer center. And she told me ahead, she's going to call you, but watch out. She's a badass. And so we laughed, and I went to see them. So I gave them everything because they needed to understand. She wanted to introduce me to her close team, 9 researchers. They're all from different places in Europe. And so they took my blood, my saliva, and my microbiome. And 3 months later, she just came to show me at the beginning of the conference on the 21st of September, 2017. And she said, JJ, is like, we started screening microbiomes of people in France 7 years ago, 2010. And we never seen a microbiome as anti-inflammatory as yours. And there were 3 pages, and normally it stops like maybe 2 or 2 1/4, 3 full pages. And at the end, the last 2 were never seen in a humankind before. So what do I do? What did I do to have this immunology response? And so this is what I've been teaching people, because we've done it. We've tested me again and again. I'm where I am today. So kidney cancer, metastatic, in 2017, in 2012, there was 0 treatment. It was known. It is known that a kidney cancer, when it becomes metastatic, that's it. In those years. Now it's a little bit different, but not much. You don't really survive kidney cancer when you become metastatic. You have to have some form of treatment, which is a combination today. Before it was a single therapy, which is partly why it didn't work at all. Today, anti-angiogenic and immunotherapy. And so combined, you extend the life of people. But is it what you want? No, because extending the life is what, 6 months? Are you very happy about this news? So still today, 0 treatment, none. I had no chemical treatment, just a couple of surgeries early on to gain time. But as I was told, my illness was the fact that when they took nodules out, 3 or 6 months later, I would have triple or quadruple the number.
Right.
But then everything stopped. And
it's incredible.
I'm teaching people to do those metabolic therapies in synergy, because it works, because you're doing a few things at the same time, which impact the chronic inflammation in your body, which is 95% of our cancers today. And it's not me saying it. Those scientists like Tom Seyfried, who's one of the top guys in the US, not him alone, his team. And he's working with lots of oncologists around the world. Everybody jumps on the train and say, hey, I want to try this with my patients. Fantastic.
So going back to that first time, that first 12-day stint, how many times would you fast in a year, for example?
What I recommend, it depends what your metabolism looks like, what sort of illness you have. So you have to consider that today, doctors treat most of the illnesses that doctors treat today with medication. Medication don't really respond most of the time, sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't, because the medication weren't made for this. So as you said early on, it's a pill for life. It sort of stabilizes. It's maybe the business. I'm not going to get into politics, and so I get people fasting as often as every month, or every month and a half, or every 2 months. But if people can, every month, 5 days. Why those 5 days? Again, because of those growth factors and those inflammatory growth factors that are responsible for fueling the illness that you have. And you've got to remember that all these illnesses, they were given medical terms, but all it is chronic inflammation. Again, I leave a little 5%, which is, there's genetic problems and all that stuff sometimes, but most of them are just a question of chronic inflammation.
Who would you say, for whom is fasting contraindicated?
Well, obviously, there are some conditions like, blood sugar, type 2, type 1 diabetes. You have to have a program, work it out with your doctor. Hopefully the doctor goes along with it, and monitors you. So you've got to be monitored when you do that with someone who knows what he's doing. You can't just say, I'm going to fast today, and I've never fasted, but hell, I heard it's a piece of cake. No, you can't improvise. There's no room for improvising. And it's the same thing with the ketogenic nutrition. I don't say diet. I never say diet. Again, you can't improvise. So you've got to be monitored.
Let's say, for example, somebody who doesn't have a chronic disease or chronic illness wants to adopt this fasting, especially the prolonged fasting we're talking about. Look, say they want to get into it for a weight loss. Is 5 days too short to get into that ketosis? Or
so you get into ketosis after between 2 and 3 days.
Okay.
If you want to index.
Yeah.
And you can monitor that ketosis. There are some tools around the planet. I've got the Ketonix, Ketonix, Ketonix. It's made in Sweden, but then you've got others in the US, which is pretty much the same. And it's easy because you don't have to do the blood test, and you just blow into a tube, and it's got an app, and it actually monitors the concentration of ketone bodies produced instantly by the liver. And so it's rated in ppm, and you see on your application, on your phone, you download the application, and it's Bluetooth, and you see the exact number or the exact situation, whether you're in a nutritional ketosis or therapeutic ketosis. And
that's
so
phenomenal. I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And then you can follow, because you can have over 7 days, over a week. You can do it every day, or even 2 or 3 times a day. And then you have, a design of what you've done during the week. And then you can take the screenshot, and then you can follow month after month what you've been doing and where you are.
That's incredible. But what if somebody has a body fat percentage of, let's say 10% or less? Would that mean then a shorter fasting window, or is that because the body doesn't have that much fat?
Anyone pretty much can fast 5 days.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, and it's important, again, because this is where those inflammatory growth factors go down the steepest slope, basically, after one goes. So 5 days is the key. But during 5 days, what you lose really is liquid, is water. You lose between 800 and 1.2 kilograms per day. So about a kilo a day. So 5 days, 5 kilos. But 90% of it is water. But you do not, and I say it again, lose muscles in that period of time. It's been shown by that clinic. They went to do tests with scientists, MRI, to test whether people were losing muscles. And no, they are not. That's BS.
So just on that, JJ, I had picked up nearly 16 kilograms during chemo. So when I was on my first fast, I lost 5.6 kilos in that 5-day period. I then picked up the weight, because you're right, it was the water. I picked up the weight again. But then on the second fast, I was able to almost reset, go back and lose an additional 2 kilograms. So I think it does, it's a process. And I think, like you mentioned, I'm going to do it again and again. Yeah. It will cumulatively add up and assist in the weight loss.
The body uses energy and organs have a function. When you reset the functions, the organs that are supposed to be key to using energy, storing energy, or using it properly are starting to function properly. So inflammation goes down, your organs function right again, and you start to lose weight. It's mechanical. It's so simple. It's too simple.
It is. And look, I was slightly, I wouldn't say unprepared, but I wasn't as well equipped as I should have been. Darcelle did give me a heads up as to, what I should be using, and I did order them. They just didn't arrive here on time. So the CMOS didn't arrive on time. I didn't have Celtic salt. I had Himalayan salt for the electrolytes. But yeah, other than that, the other thing was that I did actually go and make the broth, but I didn't have it at all, because Darcelle said she tried it, but then it actually brought on that hunger. So I thought, okay, if I even try that, then I'll fall off the wagon. Then I won't continue, because I don't want to feel those hunger pangs. Yeah, so I'll certainly be better equipped next time round, and I'll know what more to expect next time round. So I'm looking at once a month, 5 days. And I'm glad you brought up the muscle loss, because I was talking to a guy in the gym about this yesterday, and he's an animal. Like, his biceps have biceps. He's just a beast. And he's all about, geez, I don't want to lose and fair enough. Like, he's worked hard for what he looks great, and he's very interested. But he was concerned about that muscle loss.
And what is really important as well, what I forgot to say, is that during those 5 days, it's good. It's actually better to do exercise. I'm not saying sport, but exercise. Even walking 25, 30 minutes every day, but walking fast, to get your metabolism working. And you can lift weights, but not as a normal day in life where you normally eat. You just do a small session. But it's important to make your muscles work as well during the fast.
I found, so after my fast, I went and did a few laps in the pool, and there was no end to the energy. So it was like incredible. There was just no end. I just wanted to continue. So
and it's really important what you're saying, especially on the swimming, because Gustav Roussy, that Comprehensive Cancer Center in Paris, the number one in Europe, has actually done a program for breast cancer patients. I think it was about having 4 hours of swimming per week, every week, during their treatments. And they compared it to women who were not doing anything. And Bernard told me the results were totally positive compared to the women, for the women who were swimming, compared to the women who were not. And you can see that with a blood test. And so it shows you the importance of of doing a little bit of exercise to make sure that the organs function better, that you have a blood flow that is higher, you oxygen the body better, and you're changing the course of your illness or your health, basically, and you're taking control, basically,
Yes.
of what's going to happen to you. You're not giving it to a doctor and say, hey, sort me out.
And on that, JJ, I mean, I absolutely feel that I feel stronger. My body has never felt, it does feel like it is magic. It does feel like magic, because all of a sudden I feel lighter. I feel cleaner. I just feel like I'm more in control of my body than what I was before. It does. There is the magic thing.
It really is. And that's how I felt.
Magic.
Just what you're trying
Feels
to
magic.
describe there is exactly how I felt on day 3, 4, and 5. Just energy, which didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. I said, well, you shouldn't be feeling this good.
Well, scientifically,
Yeah.
okay, what you feel and people talk about, and people listen and, is it true? Well, I don't think so. Oh, yeah, I believe. But scientifically, people who are fasting regularly under supervision for some, like I said, above 5 days, you should go for peace of mind on your doctor's side. He's happy, you're happy. He's doing your, he's checking you out. He's saying, whoa, your blood pressure is a bit low. Well, it's normal, you're fasting, but it's not ever dangerous for somebody who's just a normal condition. So after 5 days, you should be doing that every sort of 4 or 5 days if you're going to continue on. But I'm really focusing on the 5 day because this is key. And when people, like I said, synergy is the key. When people have the proper balance of fatty acids and they include all the what I call the superior polyphenols, and in particular the beta glucans that which have completely disappeared of our society's nutrition today. 150 years ago there were plenty. Today, boom, because of whatever happened to our world, our modern world. And so if you include that and you go on low carb nutrition, what it shows is that when you're in ketosis, you start being in ketosis regularly because you're fasting regularly, because you're going on a low carb plan. What happens most of the time is they've seen it on blood tests over and over again. So you had, like, say, a level of energy, which was there. And then that level of energy is going to go down. And it usually lasts between 4 and 6 weeks for some people. That's the most we've seen, basically. So people, if people don't know, or they haven't been told, or they improvise, suddenly they say, oh, this is not good. I'm not feeling great, I'm feeling weak and yesterday, and then tomorrow I think I'll feel the same. And it's normal. It's the transition.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that once the transition goes, your energy level starts growing again and will reach a level which will be superior to the previous level when you were fed with carbs and sugars. And it's amazing how it works. And we understand that everything is connected because you reduce your inflammation. You reduce your inflammation where to start with? In the engine room, which is the intestinal tract. The microbiome, you come back to it. Yeah. And everything goes well. That's it. It's too simple. But I've got a lot of friends, among the doctors' world. I've got many friends in countries now. But 6 kilometers away from here, there's a couple. He's a skin specialist. She's a gastro, and she's relapsing ovarian cancer. And they have no clue. They don't understand. That they didn't know. So now they jumped on the train, and she's feeling so positive, and we gave her hope. And she's going to talk. She went to talk to the oncologist, and the oncologist said, well, you've got 5 to 10% percentage of getting out of it. basically of being stable. And they don't know anything else. They haven't been taught anything else. They are both doctors, and they realize there are things that work because, they're doctors. They don't believe me. I said to them, don't believe me? Don't. Go and look. I'll show you where to look. And suddenly they came back to me and said, wow, it's like I've seen the light.
So the data's there, the research is there, they just weren't aware of it.
We have so much of it now published. It's all in English.
Yeah.
So in France, it's a problem because they say, well, there's no research. Sorry, guys. Every single publication, whether it's in China or it's all in English.
So on that, JJ, I've got a whole group that's joining me on my fast, and you've offered to give us a talk on Zoom. So we'll be joining you on the Zoom talk so that everyone can be fully prepared before they go into the fast. Yes.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
I'll come to Cape Town and Joburg.
Yes.
And don't forget Perth.
Look forward to that.
No, but I'll be in Australia.
You will be, yeah. And even if you don't come to Perth, I'll go to Sydney.
Well, we're going to make a plan. Let's make a plan for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm on my way to changing the world. I am. I mean it. I have access to some of the highest scientists worldwide, and they're so excited about doing this whole thing. So obviously, to the extent of what I can change, you can't change everything. This is all about team sport, teamwork, and you can never do it alone.
I just have one more question, and it was around these extended fasts. So let's say I'm going to do it once a month. In between those two cycles, apart from adjusting the carb and sugar intake, would be better to sustain that intermittent fasting window, like an 18 and 6 window, or rather than just eat normally, because it'll just be like a seesaw.
So I am on an intermittent fast every day.
Yeah.
Now, the latest research shows that I'm not doing that because it works for me. But the latest research from Walter Longo's team shows that people dropping breakfast instead of having breakfast and perhaps dropping lunch brings some form of problems where people tend to, some of the people could have a pre-diabetic situation. So it's better to do a breakfast which is not the French way with croissant and all that stuff, butter and white bread, and this is terrible. You've got to have avocado, fish, bit of salad, tomatoes, mushrooms. That's got to be your breakfast. If you have a breakfast, this is what you must have. And then you have early dinner. So you have a gap here, which is long enough, which shows that it works. And then you've got the night. This form of intermittent fasting shows it really works. It really brings down chronic inflammation. So if you do that between fasting sessions, you're all good.
What do you do, JJ? You said that's what he recommends. What is it that you do? What intermittent fasting do you do?
Usually we start from, say, 1, 2 o'clock. We have a brunch, which I described. This is what we have every day. And nuts, some of the nuts, macadamia, Brazil, and pecan. Those are the three queens, because the rest goes very high in carbs. So, and then we try to have early dinner, which is, again, the same form. So it's very low in carb, but you have all the nutrients. You don't have to worry about carbs. Carbs you have everywhere, in broccoli, in cauliflower, the ones that in avocado, fruit, raspberry, you've got 1 to 2 grams per 100 grams. Blueberries, you've got 4 or 5 grams per 100 grams.
Oh, okay.
No, don't touch. It's the worst. It's at the end of the list. It's 21 or 22 grams a normal banana.
Okay, that's going to be an adjustment for me. The bananas, my ultimate favorite. Okay, so lesson learned.
It's not for life, Sean.
No, absolutely. No,
I
I
think,
get that. Yeah.
That's what I try to do with a lot of patients who come to me around the planet. Yesterday, it was a guy from India, from Bangalore. We had a Zoom session. So it's about doing a plan for 3 months. Okay, 3 months is not the end of the world. You can do it. And then we assess, and then we adjust if needed.
My brother's he's in remission at the moment. So he was diagnosed a year ago with bowel cancer. I've lost a sister to bowel cancer as well. And I think, there's such a small degree of separation with cancer around the globe. If you haven't suffered it yourself, a loved one has, or somebody very close to you has. So I'm really excited about this journey and the message that you're spreading and the change you're bringing about. So yeah, I'm definitely one of your cheerleaders. So
I've put my YouTube channel, Rethinking Cancer 2017. We've put all the main researchers' interventions. They're the best of the best, those guys, and Perfect. They accept to come to Paris. On the 21st of September 2017, and we all got together. It was the first time ever that a hospital, a comprehensive cancer center dedicated to research, clinical research, was organizing something like this, because it was like integrative oncology, like we've never talked about before. And those guys accepted to prepare a speech, fly across the Atlantic, come from Germany, come from Asia, and they all started to change this world, basically, of oncology, which is, again, primarily, always people have to remember, this is a question of chronic inflammation. Inflammation alone, when it's too hard, basically the cell dies. But as it becomes chronic, it wants to survive, because it's leaving it gaps to survive when a cell starts being sick. So the only way it can survive, because the illness is there, mitochondria stop working, and they can't use the oxygen that is available for them, because we're breathing now, we're speaking. So they ferment. And the fermentation is what brings this inflammation, and vice versa. The cancer needs inflammation. So it produces its own inflammation. So if you reduce that inflammation, you automatically have a hand on the proliferation of what's happening bad inside your body. And it will help the treatments on top of that. That's what they're showing. What I've said today, it's all coming from these researchers, publications, scientific publications. Some of it is in the highest journals of scientific journals. So it makes me laugh when somebody says, oh yeah, we don't have research. They're just not interested. They don't want to go and look, because it takes time to do this work.
And the more people become aware of the fact that the research and the results are out there for them to access, there'll be a mindset shift from, this is just kind of new age hippie kind of trial stuff with no evidence. So the more people become aware that the evidence is there, and this is where to access it, and that's how change is going to come about.
Yeah, that's the problem today, which is still a problem, but it's less and less, because a lot of doctors today, families of doctors, are getting hit by cancer, and they realize, what is this? We spend billions and billions in the cancer therapies, and we're still dying, and there's still no treatment for me, or my daughter, or my wife, or my husband. This comes from doctors. So now they're like, what is happening here? We need to have some sort of answers. And so they're coming on board. That's what's happening now. That's why I'm saying there's a change. It takes time, but basically the system, the pharmacological world, is there so that the word doesn't spread too fast. But it helps the treatment. So why not using it together? Why want to hide this from patients? To me, it's like,
it really doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Yeah.
And just listening, this is a message of hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
And we are living testimonies of it. That, I mean, I've only tasted it, but what I'm tasting, it tastes good.
Yeah.
And I like
You know,
like
Sean, I've read your story, Sean, and we've talked a little bit about it, during the talk, but it's amazing how today we can measure the impact of stress, of oxidative stress for the brain that leads to degenerative form of illness, any kind. PTSD is one of them. But if you take the chronic inflammation away, your situation is going to dramatically improve by doing regular fasting. And you will talk to me in some few months about it.
Absolutely. I had a glimpse of that, I had a glimpse of that clarity of thought that I talked about, just that it's been a while since I've been at that point. I'm always a clear thinker, but not at that level because I haven't been there for a while because of the PTSD and the associated side effects that comes with it. So yeah, it's definitely a journey that I'll be continuing. But JJ, thanks so much for coming along and sharing your knowledge.
Pleasure to have met you, and
likewise.
Darcelle, hopefully soon we can meet in
We'll
person.
see you in Cape Town.
Yeah. And Australia as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see you as well, Das.
Same here. Great to see you, Sean and JJ.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.